All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tara with Tavant, and today we are in a webinar going to discuss advancing our Proptech strategy with artificial intelligence. And we are very blessed to have two amazing speakers. Our guest speaker, Ritu Jyoti, is the Group VP, Worldwide AI and Automation Research for ADC, and she is responsible for leading the development of all of IDC's thought leadership for AI research and advisory practice. So welcome, Ritu.
Thank you, Tara. Pleasure to be here.
Lovely to have you. Thank you for taking the time. And then we also have Dr. Atul Varshnia with Tavant, and he has worked with Samsung AI R&D, as well as a handful of other leading companies in the area of AI research. So Dr. Atul Varshnia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. So today, the webinar, we're going to be discussing how artificial intelligence and machine learning are driving massive advancements in the Proptech industry. This webinar will also present technical aspects of some of the impactful use cases where AI can be applied in the field with details of techniques, methods, and performance. So I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Tara. Hello, everyone. Depends which time zone you're joining us from today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Very excited to talk about this topic. As we all know, AI adoption is growing by leaps and bounds. And today we are specifically here as a team to talk about the AI growth in the PropTech industry. But before we get there, let me get you some background as to what we are seeing in the industry in terms of AI adoption. If I take a step back, I think 2020 was the year that strengthened the value of AI adoption. And it's kind of interesting. The disruption is unsettling, but it can also serve as a catalyst for innovation and transformation. I was reminded about this famous quote from the CEO of Accenture, but I'm also reminded about a very famous dialogue between the two leading characters in the Ernest Hemingway's novel, The Sun Also Rises, where one of the characters asks the other one, how did you go bankrupt? And he said, gradually and then suddenly. I mean, that is one of the most profound lessons that we can learn in today's disruption. This is how organizations are being written off. And if I have to take the liberty, IDC is known for predictions. I'm going to predict that, AI laggards will cease to exist. AI is no longer a nice to have. By 2025, if we roll forward, I think a significant amount of the enterprises who are currently listed on Fortune 500 will continue to either will cease to exist or they will be actually taken over by, or rather I should say they'll be acquired. IDC has done an extensive amount of work. And as you can see from this slide, we actually have our annual spending guide that we publish it on twice a year. And it's our Bible in terms of, how we are tracking for every industry and use cases and where is the spending happening. This one actually covers about 9 regions, 32 countries, technology groups. But the point that I'd like to stress here is that the spend is absolutely phenomenal. It is going to be almost 204 billion by 2025. And the meta point that you see here at the bottom of the slide here is that retail, banking, manufacturing, and professional services will exceed almost half of the global IT spending on AI. And PropTech is actually covered under professional services. So you can see the significance of, the spend that we are kind of projecting. So now let's dive deeper into this specific topic and see what's really happening in this industry. So as I said in my previous slide, that the spending on professional services is actually on the top 4 industries where the half of the global spending will be taken care of by 2025. And we are forecasting that, as per our AI spending guide, that TAM for real estate is actually going to be almost 2 billion plus. So while this is such a huge market, and you have to recognize that according to Morgan Stanley Digitization Index, real estate was actually the second least digitized industry in the world. But now in recent years, we are seeing a lot of industry participants starting to recognize the immense potential. They're investing in this area. There are huge amount of investments going into the Proptech market, and we'll talk about it in the next couple of slides. But the other meta point that I'd like to stretch big here is that there is a lot of digitization happening in the world, and data is a very important ingredient to AI and ML successful running. And in addition to the advancements of the software technologies that is related to AI, the data growth, exponential data growth because of the digital transformation, every piece of information that you're gathering is actually adding another level of insight, another level of customization and personalization for the industry. As you can see from this slide, of course, we all know that Proptech stands for property and technology. You can see that, in the past, we always used to talk about fintech, but, Proptech is actually driven by the same latest technology innovations, AI and ML, and it helps in, the real estate industry to kind of completely transform and how they can operate. And you can see that the tech company count is really rapidly growing, and tech is really at the heart of how the transformation is happening in this space. And Proptech, if I have to say, is booming and it's changing the way we all buy, sell, and interact with our properties. We all are proud homeowners across the world. We all have this kind of a same experience. And it is not just focused just in US, but we are seeing across the, all the geographies. So without further ado, let me kind of walk you through. This was an interesting research done by Deloitte. And they said that, speaking geographically, if you have to see, today, Proptech companies are in the USA, they have the lion's share. And the European Proptech hubs, they're following the leader. But if you think about it, there are more than 100 Proptech startups operating as of 2020. And Israel, we are seeing, of course, Israel is a startup nation. We all know that. It's actually investing a lot. And we see significant amount of players popping out in that area. And we expect, that this will continue, this phenomenon will continue. And, with all the investments going on, with the availability of the data, with the availability of the computing resources, with the advancements in technologies, this trend will continue to kind of go forward. So with that, let me kind of go through that. What are the top business objectives? When we think about any particular industry, we want to think, what are the business objectives? What are the use cases? How are the organizations monetizing the opportunity? And also, not just about monetization, which is very, very critical. How is it completely transforming, customer experience and satisfaction? Because ultimately, it's all about business, how the business connects with the customers. And we have done some very interesting research that today, more than price and products and all of that, customer experience is front and center in the decision making, and organizations that are going to fall short on this will be really challenged to thrive and have sustainable competitive advantage. So as you can see from the chart, it's a very interesting research done by KPMG. You can see that there's a broad range of use cases in which can be used. So I kind of just summarized it here, and I'll go deeper into some of them in the next couple of slides. But what I'm seeing, the significant amount of investment right now, is that how you can actually see recommendations and personalizations, all powered by AI technologies. But then it also gives significant amount of market insights for the real estate Proptech providers. How can they improve upon their tracking and performance management as well? And I'll go through each one of them in a little bit more detail. Okay, so with that, if I come to the next deep dive here, it's basically, if you see, using AI technologies, customers can get an immersive, unprecedented, and seamless buying experience. And I know we all kind of, when we're looking around for shopping for homes, we want to actually have a 3D view. We can look through the different property values. We can actually have a real, in-person kind of a virtual feeling. But, apart from the chatbots and virtual agents that can help you provide faster responses, it can also completely transform a home search experience. So let's quickly go through this. Chatbots, automated customer service agents is nothing new. It's kind of being used as a customer service interaction mechanism for a lot of other use cases as well. But in this case, think about it, that we can interact at our convenience, at our flexibility. But there's an advantage for also the agents, and I'll talk about it in a minute. In terms of search experience, users can search the properties not just through the text. When you always think about searching, you think, intuitively we think about text search. But here, more and more, I'm seeing people can actually upload an image. They can do through a voice-enabled search. And with all the advancements that we're seeing in natural language, it can actually not just search it, but also respond, in a natural language, in a natural way, provide you the responses. And from our research, we have seen that technology increases the number of pictures that real estate platforms can import. Basically, what I'm saying is that the scale is kind of really, really the key differentiator. And property platforms, they rank higher if they have, all these kind of capabilities enabled to help the customers make the right decision, get all the right insights at the right time, at the right speed. I mean, I think those are really the key differences. So I know Atul is going to cover a lot more into details in some of these areas from a technical perspective and what he's seeing from the side, but let me cover it from the market side. For example, right now, property search sites rely on simple preferences like location and size to display the properties for sale. But more and more, we are seeing that AI can enable these sites to recommend properties based on, user preferences, personality traits, and values. It's coming. So you can just sit and think that, where the industry is heading. AI will be able to predict the trends more accurately. It is known for churning through massive amounts of data, and also not just looking through the data, but also looking through some unknown experiences and collecting your personal preferences to different sites to give you the best and the experience. And also, it's all about faster and easier experience. And there are some very interesting startups and solution providers that are kind of poised to transform this industry. So with that, let me kind of quickly walk you through. This is one of my favorite thing that, we all kind of getting used to chatbots. But in these, think about it, if you step back and think, it is not about answering questions quickly and easily, but a lot of times when you're reaching to the real estate agents, they are really, really busy sometimes. And they're around providing services and in order to kind of take their exceptional customer experience and service to the next level, this is a tool for even the real estate agents, apart from the consumer, of course. And this is a collaborative effort where it can actually create that seamless experience where you can she can, or he or the real estate agent can interact and also provide some, responses in a very timely fashion. And every, real estate agent dreams of their ideal client, and the clients dream about the houses they can afford, and having this kind of a special, conversational AI experience, which is, especially when you think about the millennials today. I mean, adults, we are all kind of getting used to it, but the millennials are very much this kind of interaction, prioritized for them. So with that, let me kind of walk you through a couple more use cases. So one interesting thing that we are seeing is that, AI can actually help you predict property value. So here in this case, you can see that, we all know that AI is known for its prediction ability to predict the future. And in the case of real estate, which is an industry of high stakes and high rewards, but the ability to predict outcomes is extremely valuable. Those who can use AI to anticipate rent and sales price fluctuations, or identify the perfect timing for selling a property, will have an unprecedented competitive advantage. And it will factor in, a lot of things can be automated and given some kind of a base level recommendations. Many times when you think about AI, you think about, that it's going to displace humans or not. But this is all about kind of helping the agent, augment the agent, and even empowering the customers to get a little bit better benefit out of it. Like you can estimate the property value by analyzing the photos. You can look into the most sophisticated interior details, not just when you're shopping for a home, but that can also be, a very, very powerful tool for estimating the property value. And it can also factor in the emotional aspect, highlight the most important things. It can learn through the buying patterns and the preferences of different customers and factor in those experiences to a different level and provide some guidance into what the property value would look like. It can really help, to define what is going to be the asking price and how the asking price can be tuned to best need of the customer. The next thing that I quickly wanted to cover is about, this is a very interesting thing that one of the players in the industry have done research on. But, I've seen, and especially during COVID, you have seen that, there's a lot of corporate office buildings and real estate maintenance buildings, which are just sitting idle. And, it really adds up to the cost. So there's some decent offerings in the market right now. They help the real estate management professionals effectively utilize the office space, gather data from various sources, including Wi-Fi and IoT sensors, which is then analyzed by an AI algorithm and turned into valuable insights that they can make better decisions about using this space, and employees can talk to spaces with the help of natural language processing. But the most important thing is that, is there an opportunity to rearrange the entire office layouts or adjust every single employee's workspace and see how you can actually make the best use of the investment. There's another, there's some companies who are actually specializing in energy saving in property resource optimization, right? Machine learning algorithms can automatically analyze weather data and detect any suspicious spikes in energy use patterns to warn managers. So it's not just about the space, but also a lot of other interesting insights that can help bringing down all the operational costs. And this is going to be, it's humanly impossible to keep a tab on it. Interestingly, a lot of times people were doing it all manually. So I think you can see the potential that this technology offers and how, organizations can take it from here. With that, my last example, I believe, is about the, where AI-powered can be used, solutions can be used for efficient mortgage lending. I think every part of AI solution that we talk about, it is very data rich, very data intensive. But, a big part of the real estate industry is that, and especially mortgage lending, is that it is data intensive by definition. You need to take care of bank statements. I mean, I don't even want to go through that experience. When we bought the house 25 years back, it's like bank statements, credit history, proof of the income, many other papers, so much challenges, to be done there, and can be extremely taxing and time consuming from all the parties, right? So we are seeing a lot of, initially we saw that OCR based technologies, but now computer vision AI technologies in conjunction with OCR, in conjunction with RPA, all is kind of being used to automatically do the pre-extraction, the extraction, and post-extraction. It's data, doing the data enrichment from your systems of records and experience. It's actually doing the data validation. All in all, it's minimizing the room for errors. And we all know that machine learning tools can learn, and they can actually do much better than human. Sometimes, bringing in the human in conjunction with the machine can be good, but, because of the self-learning, it can guide the humans to do a much better decision and, guide it to the benefit of both the parties concerned. So I will wrap it up with some recommendations to the Proptech suppliers as well as to the end users as you are kind of going through this journey. And I'll build the slide for the interest of time, but there are three areas in which we are kind of, recommending. First of all, whenever you embark on an AI journey or an AI initiative, it's never going to be easy. A lot of time people think it's all about, just the technology. Technology is very critical, but people and process play a significant part. And many times I spend times with the industry folks, and they always tell me that they struggle to actually get the projects going because there was lack of alignment from a people perspective. So there's lack of talent, there's lack of data availability. How do you actually kind of, integrate and you're bringing in data from different sources. Sometimes, there are lesser use cases here, but, there's a lot of concern about trust on the data, trust in the solutions that is actually being provided. How do you bring everybody together and take care of your security and privacy requirements? and make sure that, the data is kind of taken from all the different parts of the function and not just one particular area. And they're very creative, innovative solutions that are coming in, but select, a platform that is, can bring in the plethora of different attributes and all kinds of data. It cannot be just, structured or unstructured, but even internal and external. And that's where the beauty of the solution will shine. And make sure, we are seeing that cloud and AI are synergistic. And so make sure that your platform is open. Open source technologies are very, very, front and center in the field of AI initiatives. So make sure that you can embrace and you can support multiple cloud and make sure that people can come together and collaborate. It's not just a siloed solution where you build something in silo, but not connected to the rest of the system. It's going to be a crawl, walk and run phase, but we are super excited to see. If I have to sum it up in one line, I would say the bright future of AI in real estate has just started, and there's tremendous amount of opportunities going forward. With that, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to pass it on to Atul.
Thank you, Ritu. Let me just start sharing my screen. I hope you can see that.
Yes.
So hello, everyone. After a very good industry overview and insights provided by Ritu, I will go over some specifics of certain use cases where AI is making impact in the real estate industry. And being a technologist, I will tend to lean towards providing intuition about how these use cases work at a high level. My objective is that so that the business decision makers have a better view of what goes in them and what to expect from those in terms of business value. So let's get started with that. So clearly, there are a wide range of areas where AI can be used for delivering business benefits to real estate professionals. And if you look at the life cycle of a real estate or a home, the use cases can be seen in all phases. So starting with pre-purchase, we look at listing creation. So to accelerate and enhance the way the listings are created in terms of creating listing descriptions, improve the photos of the listings, annotate house pictures, extract key information items regarding the listing in an easy to consume form for buyers and agents. Looking at property search, enable smarter and enhanced searches. Personalize the searches to meet each individual's unique needs. Search and display similar homes, which can be done by grouping of homes on most common searches or personalized to the individual. In my opinion, just these two stand to bring so much of value that all the other use cases that I'm going to talk about are very important, but these two kind of tower over those. And this is in line with what Ritu was mentioning earlier, that it is all about experience and engagement. So moving on to the purchase phase, we think about lenders. So valuation, better understand what property is worth. AVMs, those are the kind of areas that lenders would be more interested in. And even identify fixer-uppers, which is fairly key from lenders' perspective. Then working with appraisers, help analyze properties, look at comparables, save time through use of AI for automation of various tasks, and help with better conclusion on what the property is worth. Then in the post-purchase phase, we can think of insurance. So to identify any risky properties, and in the event of a disaster, which properties may have been affected. Think of renovations. People generally want to evaluate what can I put in the property and what can I get out of that. So AI can help make such assessments from pictures and other listing information, and it can actually make recommendations of what kind of renovation projects are beneficial. Then refinance. So if I've done the renovations, can I refinance my home based on what my properties may be worth now? So in this webinar presentation, I will go over a few use cases to try to give a sense of what the impact, sense of impact those use cases can have in this industry. And keeping time in mind, I'll cover a few illustrative examples today, but that should give you a general idea of how key AI can be and is to real estate industry. So I will keep the discussions practical by speaking about those use cases which are actually in use and generating value for the real estate professionals, as well as home buyers and sellers. Apart from Tavant, such solutions are actually being offered by multiple vendors in the industry. So I will start with some use cases involving computer vision. We'll transition to natural language processing and natural language generation. And then I will talk about a solution that involves multiple such AI techniques to build a smarter property search agent. So let's get started with some use with computer vision. But why to talk about computer vision for real estate? It's important to note that property photos do play an important part in home purchase process. Looking at the results from a study to determine which are the main drivers for making property purchase decisions, the study revealed that photos are most important drivers, even more important than virtual tours or virtual showings, which at least to me was an eye-opener. And it is apparent that the reason for this is the amount of information that can be gleaned about the property by humans, that is buyers as well as real estate professionals. And I'm reminded of the cliche that a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's basically that idea. Around 1 million property pictures are uploaded a day in the US alone. These pictures carry a lot of valuable information about the properties and have the potential to help the real estate professionals as well as buyers make decisions about the properties. The information carried in the pictures, if extracted and used, can enrich property listings, enable smart search of the properties, and provide helpful information in an easy to consume form to buyers and so on. But extracting such information from such volume, such huge amount of volume of the data that's being uploaded by manual means is fairly difficult and impractical. And that's where AI comes in. AI can help in automating the extraction of various elements of information from these pictures quickly as well as accurately. Computer vision, if you think about it, is one of the leading areas in AI and has actually delivered large value in various industries. And therefore, it kind of makes sense for me to talk about that in context of Proptech also. So these are certain well-understood areas where computer vision can be used and is being used today. Many of these have to do with inferring some specific information from the image and helping in enriching the listing and enabling smart searches for the properties. Basically, going back to the earlier point that I made, that having better listing, having information presented in the listings in a better way, and enabling better searches seems to be the most important element in all the use cases of AI in context of real estate industry. So identify the architectural style of the house, whether it is ranch, colonial, farmhouse, etc. Condition of the house, such as is it a luxury home, or on the other end of the spectrum, is in disrepair, that will require fixing, hence will incur expense, or even that it'll make it a candidate for being a fixer-upper purchase by investors. Then identifying rooms in the pictures to organize the images, allowing the users to browse them in a systematic way, making it easier for the users and avoiding any confusion. Then tag features in these rooms, like fireplace, kitchen island, pool in the backyard, and so on, to enrich the listing with the same benefits of clearer information and better search. Also, the image can be checked for compliance. So many times the pictures that are uploaded have people, the faces of people in there, or some private information like their phone numbers or such kind of things. Those can also be identified using AI, and then the pictures can be handled appropriately. Plus, there are many other instances of where the AI can be used, such as identify kind of appliances, stainless appliances, for instance, countertop stove versus cooking ranges, etc. And even things like house similarity and auto-generate listing descriptions. So house similarity is basically, again, a way of making your searches smarter, because so when you're looking at a house in a listing search, it can actually show you many other similar houses in the same neighborhood or in the area that you've selected. So that also becomes a very useful idea. So let's start with a seemingly simple but fairly consequential use case about image enhancement. So very often, or predominantly, the pictures of the homes that are taken are actually taken by homeowners themselves, and are generally either fairly small in size or blurry due to camera shake. Basically, they're not professionals. So the quality of the pictures is generally poor. But it is interesting to know that the properties with high quality images are sold quicker, and some studies claim 50% quicker, and they are sold for higher price. It kind of makes sense, because if I'm browsing a listing and I'm not able to see the pictures very clearly, my impression about that house will not be very, very convincing to me. So maybe I will skip that listing and go to those where the pictures are of better quality. So how is it done by AI? So if you look at a low quality picture, it has a lot of pixel level information that's missing, right? If you look at closely, it is clear that the details that would have been present in a high resolution or a high quality image are just missing here. They have been kind of eliminated because of blur, because of the noise that got added, which made the picture quality which made the picture quality low. If you use the more simple sharpening kind of techniques, I'm just showing you an example. They can be slightly better techniques also, but just to make my point, if you use those kind of techniques, it basically just makes the graininess caused by noise and blurriness even more prominent. So that's not what you're looking for. What you're actually looking for is creating that information which has been taken away because of the low quality image. You're looking for images to look like something like this. Basically, AI can be a very good technique to solve these kind of problems. What it does is it uses generative techniques to fill in and generate information. So the key point is it is generating new information rather than just trying to do some kind of convolutions on the existing image. And why can AI do that? It can do that because the deep learning networks that are trained, the AI models that are created, have inherently in them the capability to understand what a leaf looks like, what a book rack looks like, what a table looks like. And it can therefore generate those from the low quality versions of those objects. It can generate those objects at a much higher resolution by filling in the missing pixels, which would have otherwise captured that information. And again, just to emphasize, high quality images help you sell your house faster and for higher value. So while it may look like not so important, but this is actually turns out to be a fairly important use case. Okay. In the next use case, I'm going to talk about image classification and object recognition. So first of all, let me tell you what these two terms mean. So when we're looking at image classification, we are looking at the entire image and giving a label to it based on what is the most prominent information that is being depicted in that image. So in other words, the image classification deals with AI models that look at the image and create a label, a single image for a single label for the entire image. Object detection, on the other hand, looks inside the image and looks at the component objects or the various different elements of the image and comes up with identifying and locating different objects in the image. For instance, in this, you can see cats, a dog, and a duck. That's what the model has been trained for, but it doesn't mean that you could not train the model to also recognize a tub, also recognize bushes. And if you did that, then those also would be the objects that would be detected and located in the image. Okay, so we talked about image classification and object detection, and I'm showing you cats and dogs. What has that got to do with real estate? This is what it has to do with real estate. So using those techniques, we can actually look at the property images and create information about those images. So for instance, you can identify which room is being depicted, which room is being shown in those images. So that is the image classification kind of use part of the deal. The other part is that we can look at the images and identify what are the elements in that image, what are the features in that room that need to be highlighted. And again, we are looking at objects. We can train the AI models to identify those specific kind of objects and highlight them if they are present in the image. For instance, there's a fireplace in the living room, or there's the room has wooden hard floors, and so on and so forth. These information are useful because they provide insights into the images and therefore help build better listing information, which can be consumed by the buyers who are browsing through the listings. One thing I'd like to also highlight here is, and that might be at the back of minds as you're listening to this, is that when you take property pictures, there are things that are behind other objects. So for instance, there can be a cooking range that is partially hidden by the kitchen island. But the techniques that exist in machine learning and AI, they can deal with these kind of issues pretty effectively. So while that's a problem, but there are good solutions to take care of those problems also. Okay, now we have, having talked about generating captions for images and identifying objects, these are basically ways of extracting valuable information from pictures, which can then be used by downstream software to build even higher value information. Apart from the value that they deliver to the consumers or to the buyers and to the real estate professionals, this information that is being extracted from the images can actually be used for building even higher value information. And that is, for instance, the example that I'm showing here, generating a textual description of the listing from the information that is extracted from various sources. And the kind of information that it can make use of is the information extracted from images, information extracted from listing data, and also location information. So those kind of things can go into a natural language generating model, and it can actually create descriptions which are basically indistinguishable from what a human would generate. So it basically helps the real estate professionals from avoiding having to pore over all that information and writing the description themselves, because all that can be done automatically. Not only that, if the real estate professional deals with different kind of demographics, then they can actually generate the description which addresses the unique requirements of that demographic. For instance, for the same condominium, you could generate a description targeted towards a young couple that wants to buy that condominium. Or you could write description which is aimed towards an investor that wants to buy that condominium and rent it out to students. So the kind of requirements that would be highlighted would be slightly different. And it is possible to generate such kind of multiple descriptions of the same property based on what kind of demographics that you want to address. Finally, I want to talk about a use case where, this use case is about a smart search engine to identify categories of properties, specifically meant to look for fixer-upper properties, but inherently has the capability to be extended to a variety of categories of real estate properties. To keep it short and keep it at a high level, the core idea is to create groups or segmentation of homes based on a set of specific attributes or features of that property. For instance, if we consider the advertised price of a house and we find it is substantially lower than the price of a similar house in the neighborhood, that is quite a telling attribute of that house. And it might actually imply that this house is not in a very good condition, and therefore can be interpreted to mean that it is likely to be a fixer-upper. And therefore, that house can be grouped under the fixer-upper category. So basically, how do we do this? We create and select such features which are most relevant for the kind of segmentation we wish to create, and then train an unsupervised model to get to that kind of segmentation. It's important to note that the features I mentioned can be generated from images, from listing information, from location information, etc. And as I mentioned in the earlier slides, all these kind of techniques that I had talked about, dealing with extracting features from images, extracting features from textual description, all those can be used to extract very specific relevant features for this kind of a use case. And such feature creation and extraction can require a layer of other AI models which perform such feature extraction. So this is a composite solution which involves multiple models generated, multiple models created for generating this kind of information. This was my last use case, and I hope that gives you a pretty good sense of variety of use cases where real estate industry is getting benefits from the application of AI. I will now hand it over to Tara for any questions.
Thank you. So let's see the questions. We do have one that just came in, and this one is for Ritu. Let's see. So let's see. Is she still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Tara.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure. Okay, fantastic. So a question that just came through the chat box for you is, how are the trustworthy AI issues managed within Proptech?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question. It's one of my favorite topics that I like to talk about. There's not much, uniqueness in the Proptech area, but generally, trustworthy AI is a big focus area right now. So the way we look at it from a framework perspective, there are 5 different areas that we need to focus on. One is that as the data is being used, are they kind of, using the right set of tools to avoid any kind of fairness issues? As the models are being built, can they explain, you do not discriminate anybody, and for any security, legal, compliance reasons, you need to have a serious explainability as to why the decision was made, or why that pricing was recommended, or why this one ranked higher. So it's the same set of tools that, when you're using these tools, make sure that these provide these capabilities. The third aspect to that is that the platform that it is being used to develop the solution or deploy the solution needs to be from any kind of adversarial robustness. Any kind of security or privacy attacks, or if the data scientists, they're building their models and they're taking it out on their laptop or in an Excel spreadsheet, how do you inject some kind of a differential noise that it doesn't really kind of, compromise any kind of secure data? And last, two areas that we kind of focus on, and it's kind of coming up in a big way right now, is that how do you track the entire data lineage? How do you make sure that what data sources were used, how were they used for compliance reasons? And it has to be also transparent, right? Did you really do all the checks in the right places and times? So it's a framework that we kind of cover through. There are some nuances, because of the PropTech market, but I would like to kind of focus on the broader industry trend of trustworthy AI so people get a broader sense. But hopefully this should help, and the person can reach out to me if they have any further deep dive request on that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And for any other questions coming in, if they are specific to either of our speakers, please note on the screen that you have their direct contact information, and they both are very welcoming of any questions or conversations that you'd like to further beyond at this point. Let's see, back to the chat. What else do we have here? Okay, this one is for Atul. How widely are such AI-based solutions being used today in the real estate industry?
Great question. Ritu actually talked a lot about that, but let me tell this from the perspective of our experience with customers. So first of all, take a step back. Across all industries, AI is definitely bringing business value and is being adopted widely, and real estate industry is no exception. However, if one has to compare, then among sister industries such as mortgage, lending, banking, insurance, it is apparent, and I believe Ritu will concur, that real estate industry is a little behind in leveraging AI. In fact, it goes back to the point that Ritu made earlier, which was that PropTech industry is second least digitized, which basically is a foundation to being able to develop AI-based solutions. However, as you observe the current trends from our own customer interactions, our perception is that the real estate industry is now seriously looking at utilizing the power of AI for enhancing and improving their business processes. In fact, the kind of questions that we get from our customers are that show the amount of insight that those professionals have with what AI can do for them. And they come up with some really interesting ideas of what way they want to utilize artificial intelligence for bringing value to their processes. And I say this because I believe it happens in all industries. In real estate, the use of AI is seen to move from just ideas to practical value delivering solutions. And this basically, we believe, is having a positive feedback effect and is therefore accelerating its adoption by real estate professionals.
Thank you very much. Excellent answer. Okay, let's see. I think we have just a few more here, if that's okay with you both. This one is for Ritu. Is Alexa an example of PropTech?
I love the way you giggled because I would also smile at that question. Yes, she is. Alexa and all the other digital home assistants, they're all example of a foray into the Internet of Things that we are seeing right now. In fact, there were a couple of years back, IoT was a big, buzzword, for lack of a better word, right? I could say, but it is one of the most promising innovation in the real estate space. It's a broad network of all interconnected things, and it includes people, and the relationship it will be between people, things, and all the sensors are the glue that keeps all these relationships together. So the short and sweet answer is yes, she is, and she will play a very important role in so many cases, especially the millennials. My son walks into the house and he says, Alexa, put all the lights on, and the entire house lights up. Alexa, put the TV off. I am still not used to it, but the answer is yes.
Well, thank you. That's actually something I would not have thought of otherwise. So thank you for answering that as well. Okay, we have time for one more for Atul. Let's see. You mentioned about identifying room types and even specific items in the rooms. Let's take family room as an example. The problem I see there is that there can be many different kinds of family room layouts. Is it practical to train models to identify that many different kinds of family rooms?
Yeah, so this question basically goes into a little more depth of how do you build such kind of AI models that do such kind of identification. And being a technologist, I love such kind of questions. So see, I talked about image recognition or image classification, where we said, we can train models to identify the image as is. Other models that can be generated, which can assist in making better classification decisions. And what I'm basically trying to bring up is similarity kind of techniques. What basically I mean by that is what makes a family room a family room. There are certain attributes, or there are some features of that which we register in our minds and call it a family room. So the idea is that AI deep learning models, which extract more and more relevant information as they progress in their layers. I'm sorry if I'm getting too technical, but deep learning models consist of a lot of layers where the input data comes in and then progresses through that and finally comes out at the other end. As it progresses through those layers, it extracts more and more relevant features from the point of view of the output that has to be generated. Therefore, it stands to reason and it stands to intuition that if you chop the layers at just before the end, you will get a set of attributes of that image which are most relevant for that classification problem. Now that sequence, that set of attributes will tell you whether this should be called a family room or not. Or in other words, when another family room would also come up with very similar attributes. Therefore, similarity in those attributes is the way by which we can determine whether a room is a family room or not. In very simple terms, we create a set of attributes for the room and look for its similarity with other well-known room descriptions. And that helps us classify. So yes, excellent point that we cannot train a model to identify all kinds of family rooms. But if we can train a model to extract those salient features about what we call a family room, then it's easy to classify.
Interesting. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. So say for example, now when real estate agents go to create a valuation of a home, right? When they're going to advise clients on the price to sell. So currently the kind of process is that they go into as many homes in the neighborhood as they can. So they have a good understanding of the market and the conditions, but they also do research for about 3 to 6 months back, depending on what the market's doing, to give them an assessment of overall location condition to assess the value. But what this seems to offer to me is that it also presents the opportunity to more quickly and almost in real time get a very live and up to date and saying, this style of living room is selling faster than this style of living room. And they don't have to take the time to go 3 months back. It just speeds up the process. Is that kind of where it might be going?
That's a great point, actually. And this is not something that I was coming to, but this is a great point that you bring up, Tara. So being able to correlate the attributes of the property with how well it's performing in the market can also become, and those correlations can be established again using AI techniques. And they themselves can be very good inputs to the real estate professionals, as you just pointed out.
Oh, interesting. Well, I think this is all very exciting. So thank you both so much for taking the time. And again, both of their contact information is over on the screen. So if you have any questions or you want a further discussion or maybe invite them to speak for an event for yourself, please feel free to contact them directly. And we look forward to the next opportunity to get to speak with you both.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you.